I'm currently writing up a description of experience and why consistency is the key to, I think, corporate success. It's like the one thing that corporations have regarding, like, as an advantage, is that when you walk into a corporate location of any kind of food and beverage service, a good corporation will have policy set that allows for someone to walk in to one restaurant on one side of the country and walk in the same kind of restaurant on the other side of the country, and they're going to expect a certain level. And this isn't just about employee hygiene or policies regarding HR. It actually is also pretty ubiquitous with the way that the store is actually operated, the way the stores are set up. Starbucks is famous for this. They're even known for having specific dates when they're going to be putting out certain items and doing seasonal changes. In the same way that Trader Joe's gets a bunch of people coming for bags, Starbucks has that same experience. And where people are lining up to get specific cups that they want to get. So when you see a break in that, I think it's actually an indication of a store suffering, or not just a store, but often the corporation itself, suffering from a business operational perspective, to where if even regional management isn't responding, then you end up with a break in that consistency that your patrons are expecting. And I think that is actually an indication of where Starbucks is at, unfortunately. So this is a unique situation here because it is the Ximeno Avenue store over on in Long Beach near the traffic circle. So you do have a lot of transient activity, people who are coming in and just sitting here and not actually purchasing drinks, that aren't actually patrons. And the policy is pretty liberal, and I'm not saying I'm for it or against it, but it definitely, you can observe throughout the day that people will come and go, and often they'll come in and they'll sit at a table, never purchase a drink or beverage. I'm definitely not the kind of person that would rush that kind of person out, and I don't see management doing that, despite the high volume of customers that a store like this location actually serves. At the same time, a lot of people don't want to see the confrontation of store employees or management with individuals that they would not want to have in the store. That's not a fun thing to have to experience. So an example of that is, even though they're legitimate patrons, it's the reverse of your employees wearing strong perfumes or fragrances. It's actually a health department issue, not where they mandate it, but there is mandates and regulations on non-food items entering the food supply and the food products that are being produced. A good example of this actually is what I've experienced previously, where you have baristas who do wear perfumes and fragrances. A common place to put those fragrances and perfumes is on your wrists. What I've experienced personally is, because your baristas are placing the lids on the tops of drinks, smells and fragrances that are on their hands transfer to your cup. And that's why hand washing, of course, is important. But the reason that Starbucks and most any other corporate food service establishment has policies regarding employees, or partners in this case, wearing strong fragrances is exactly because customers don't want to smell personal fragrances on their food and beverages. And I don't think that that's a person being too sensitive. I have a strong sense of smell, but what I do notice is that it does transfer. And so if you have a food service employee who is wearing strong perfumes and that transfers over to the food that's being purchased, it's basically a non-food item being transferred into the food that's being delivered. So this is why corporate policies exist like this, and it is hard. At the same time, and almost on the reverse of that, while there are fragrance policies and guidelines for often corporate food service places, it's hard to regulate and deal with when you have like patrons who come in who do not smell great or have bad hygiene themselves, and they end up causing issues, right? Do you want to sit at a table in a restaurant where it's hard to breathe because the person who's come in and sat next to you is creating such a strong smell environment? But this is also tied into like mental illness, people who are just plain don't have the resources to be able to keep up their hygiene, and so it's a hard balance. And I can imagine as a manager of a food service establishment, here you are making sure that your own employees don't have strong perfumes and fragrances. At the same time, how do you handle politically and culturally issues with patrons smelling themselves? So it's a difficult situation. And in general, what I've noticed is that people will wear strong perfumes. The way that I described it to my children, and I've often experienced this like in corporate environments, office environments, where you have groups working together, there is often usually someone, an adult, man or woman, who is known for their unique signature smell. They probably are proud of the perfume or the cologne that they purchase and buy, or their wife gives it to them every year at Christmas or on their anniversary, and man, they just like know that that's their smell. But almost always there is a situation where that person is known in the office as being the person who wears too much fragrance. And people who are extra sensitive to it, it can be very disturbing. Other times it's not. It's just known that that's like the way that person chooses to use cologne and fragrances. So it is the kind of thing where it's like a double-edged sword. You have both corporate policies that deal with it, and then you also have the awkwardness of dealing with it from a management side of how do you deal with from actual customers, not just your employees, but from the customers who are visiting the store. And I don't know what the best answer is, but a break in consistency from a corporation that serves food and beverages is a big indication of how that corporation is able to operate, or how it is that they are operating and applying their own policies that they've actually published on the internet. So it's awkward, and I'm not sure the best solution to it other than to when you see it on the controllable side, because while you may not be able to control it from the customer side, management can control this kind of thing with their own employees, which is why in the Starbucks partners dress code that's published online, there is actually like a personal hygiene section that deals with the requirement to not wear strong fragrances. So people smarter than I have dealt with this before, probably deal with it constantly. As someone who has spent thousands of dollars at Starbucks in the last 20 plus years, seeing that break in consistency is like the one thing that I liked about Starbucks, besides like the actual coffee flavor. I love the coffee, but being able to walk into a Starbucks and to be able to experience like a clean environment, bathrooms like that were signature known as one of their signature features, to have a lot of staff and labor focused on making sure that the bathroom stays clean. So I think that is probably the biggest disappointment with watching the break in consistency in the way that Starbucks are being managed, now that I've experienced it at multiple locations, where it's not just like a one-off, or perhaps like some management at a specific store that needs some policy training or some HR training, it ends up becoming all of a sudden the regional manager is a little bit more lax on it. The quality of the stores in the region happens to drop down. And then because you're dealing with corporate employees who are on salaries, who have big job titles like a regional management position, it becomes more difficult to handle, because escalating an issue up beyond regional management means that an issue has to be large enough that either you have a volume of complaints that come in, or you have like reported issues with health departments that would actually affect the ability for the restaurant to operate, or you have privately held information about specific instances that are too big for a corporation or corporate level that's above regional management to be able to address. So these are why they make big salaries in corporate management, because they have to decide how strict and how consistent they're going to make the experience for customers at different stores, while maintaining that delicate cultural balance, socioeconomic balance of perhaps you have someone who can afford coffee but may not be able to afford shower, or might be experiencing mental illness on a level that is making it difficult for them to be able to take care of their own personal hygiene. And like I said before, if it's on the employment side, you can use all of the different types of HR mechanisms that corporations employ to be able to address the issue. So, a big consistency break, I would say, for this corporation that I've been a fan of and patron of for 20 plus years. But there it is. So, unfortunately, unless that there is like some decisions on a larger level or higher level, you probably won't see much movement on it. And a lot of the beyond the obviously published things like a partner's guide for dress code in a food service place like Starbucks, because they're so large, they publish it directly online. You're not able to see it. It's an opaque process for what their policy is for managing more difficult situations like this. So there you go. But these are the same people that have to decide how they're going to manage policies like refills, or people bringing in too much office equipment, setting up shop inside here for hours. I definitely use my laptop here for hours at a time. Being able to buy a $3 cup of coffee and get free refills on it allows me to work in what used to be a consistent environment. And that doesn't seem to be the case at this location, unfortunately. So it's similar to some of the situations that I saw happening on the Gaffey and 5th Street store in San Pedro. And I think it truly is difficult for these managers. Gaffey and 5th suffered from high transient rates from Gaffey Street itself. And so there is... The balance that I'm talking about is the humanitarian balance of operating a business, but also like if you have someone come in and they need a glass of water because they might be in like emotional distress or financial distress to the point where they like find the nearest door that will open for them and they like ask that person for a cup of water. And Starbucks has always been, I've always seen baristas like serve people where I feel is right. Like they should like serve them a cup of water if they need it. And so they're in a difficult situation where they're one of the unique corporations that for decades now has been that serving type. They won't just rush you out the door if they don't like the way you look, or they don't like the way you smell, or they don't like the way that you're acting. Although I've noticed that in the last, I think it's 6 months to 12 months, there was public marketing and stories that came out about the shifts in the corporation policies of Starbucks that actually shifted and like sounded a little bit more strict and stern, to be honest with you, where they were actually put out the policy about not using too much office equipment, that they weren't going to allow that kind of abuse. But at the same time, in the last, I think since January of this year, of 2025, is when they shifted the refill policy. I can remember working in Bellingham, Washington, doing remote work on my laptop, and this was back in, I want to say, 2011, late 2010, no, it must have been early 2011. Bellingham, Washington has the highest per capita rate of coffee houses for the population. And it's like this amazing spread of mom and pop coffee shops. And I still found myself going back to Starbucks, even though I love supporting local businesses, because you could walk into a Starbucks and you would know that the bathroom would be clean and that employees would tend to it. And also that level of cleanliness and for like the way that the bathroom is supposed to be kept was set at a corporate level. So when I would walk into some of these mom and pop coffee shops in Bellingham, so many of them were awesome, but there was usually at least one thing that would ding them, and it would be something like, well, egregious, like the coffee was terrible, but that didn't happen too often. There was usually pretty good coffee. It's usually something like limited seating or bad Wi-Fi, inaccessible Wi-Fi, which is like another signature feature that Starbucks offers to patrons, or something like the coffee is too expensive, or location, of course, always. But I found myself working that remote job up there. This is now 14 years ago, and I had, at the time, they did not offer free refills on black coffee. Unless you were this is when they didn't have the app yet. This was, like I said, early 2011, I think it was. They didn't have the app yet. There was no free refills, but if you were a Gold Star app, Gold Star holder, and you had spent a certain amount on they actually had like magnetic stripe cards from Starbucks that were like the, you're like, oh man, you buy way too much fucking coffee at our shit here. And if you got enough points, then you got the free refills. And I think I ended up, like, at the time I was definitely into cream and sugar and flavors in my coffee. Not like I drink it black now, but at the time I liked that. You could always put half and half in at the cream and sugar bar. And then I think I would like splurge, and I would pay 50 cents for like white mocha crap or some syrup. I think it was white mocha I would get. And so all of a sudden your black coffee, the free refill, it would be like 50 cents, and I was totally willing to pay it because I was working remotely at the time on my laptop. And so there is an example of how even now they've got a loosening policy where they've decided to do free refills, and perhaps it's not the greatest. Unless they literally want people in the seats so that their stores don't look so empty. I know they do a lot of high volume to go traffic now, but this is a uniquely high volume store. Now that I've been observing it for a few weeks now, the traffic amount that comes in and out of here, it's very time-based, and like most any restaurant, it opens uniquely early. I don't see a lot of Starbucks that open as early as 4:30. It's one of the unique ones. A lot of them open at 5 or 5:30. So this location actually opens at 4:30. And then they're open as late as 11 o'clock, although last evening was the first time I'd really stayed in very late. And I was thinking I could bought some tea at like around 10 o'clock, and I figured I'd had an hour. And then at 10:30, we were shooed out and told that they were closing the lobby. I don't know if that was unique to last night or like the closers on the shift. I would be surprised if it was. I think that they end up using that last half hour to close their lobby down, and they allow for the drive-thru to stay open. which is interesting. I guess it works. It While I came out onto the patio, though, I had to get like a to-go cup, right? Because I had gotten my tea for here, and so I wasn't finished, and my water for here. But they gladly gave me cups. But when I came back out onto the patio, and they did lock the doors at 9:30, excuse me, at 10:30. I observed 5 different people walk up to the door and try to open it. So there is a demand, and there's also just like a public discrepancy, because when you do look at like things like Google Maps, or even on the Starbucks mobile app, the location is listed as being open till 11 o'clock, and there's no nuance in specifying whether or not that hour of closure is just for the lobby or just for the drive-through. And it would probably be a good maneuver for them, if they are going to be closing at 10:30, for them to like closing the lobby at 10:30, to list lobby hours and then drive-through hours. And it's definitely not a bad thing. I like a late open Starbucks. God, I wish it was 24 hours, but that literally, just in one evening of observing the patio while I finished my tea outside, I saw that there are patrons who were coming to the door attempting to open it and enter, because they probably went to Google Maps or they saw on the app that the location was still open, but it wasn't. And I don't believe that there are hours posted on... Oh, they do have a QR code, it looks like, which probably reduces signs and unique signs they have to make for each location. But I do wonder if it takes you back to the mobile app, which says 11 p.m. So these are the kinds of things that people who, especially for me, who's been a 20-plus year patron of Starbucks, literally spent thousands and thousands of dollars on Starbucks coffee. I even buy the beans. I like the Verona. I buy the beans when I'm in like kicks of not going to the cafe. I still buy their products. Those are the breaks in consistency in a corporation that will kill a corporation. That when people who have been going for decades realize that there is no longer the consistency that they're expecting, no longer the cleanliness of the bathroom, or, man, that's like actually a killer of any business. If you have listed hours, people try to go and buy your things, and you are not open, that will kill any business. And it will teach people that they cannot rely on you to be there when they are looking for your product. Then they go and they find alternatives, like a coffee shop or something that's open late, and they end up going there, or finding a different solution for their caffeine, habits, and that's how they break as a customer. So, from my perspective of seeing this corporation, that, God, I am not a fanboy of fucking corporations, dude. I buy Mac computers, but I'm not a fucking Apple fanboy. I could give a fuck less what next product they come out with. Other than, like, I want a beefy machine to work on. That's it. I don't care about their special products. Wow. It's hard to continue being someone who supported a corporation that you saw for decades actually hold to their consistency. So, I like mom and pop restaurants. I don't particularly want to go to every Subway or McDonald's across the country. I like to find unique stuff, but I feel different about the coffee house. I want to find a Starbucks in a city that I go to. I know that their bathrooms will be clean and accessible. I know that the coffee is going to be excellent. Lots of people want that McDonald's experience in their food too. I personally don't. I want the unique food. So if you know me, you know my history, you know my often anti-corporate stances, you would realize that ever being a fanboy of Starbucks is a pretty unique thing for me personally. And it is, I don't want to say heartbreaking, it is a bit stunning to see the breakdown in consistency of management, and not just at a local level in some of these stores like the Gaffey and 5th Street store in San Pedro and this store here on Eximina Avenue, but in what appears to be a regional issue. So maybe I guess I need to go somewhere else and they're okay with that.